Sometimes the most unexpected decisions can completely change the course of our lives. In this story, we follow Kim Ah-young, a young woman who faces enormous difficulties while taking care of her younger sister, Kim Dan-bi. The arrival of a stranger, Lee Woo-sung, not only tests her strength but also opens the door to a future full of challenges, emotions, and new beginnings. Let's get started. A beautiful girl starts her morning like any other, wandering through her luxurious home. The sun illuminates the corners of the residence, highlighting its opulence and space. As she heads to the bathroom to get ready, she crosses paths with a man coming out of it, reminding her of the unusual situation she finds herself in. This man, 5 years older than her, is her father, at least in a legal sense. A few days earlier, the story takes us into the life of Kim Ah-young, a young woman who lives with her younger sister, Kim Dan-bi. At 8 years old, they have both been orphans since their parents passed away 7 years ago in a tragic accident. The loss deeply marked their lives. But Ah-young has bravely taken on the responsibility of caring for her sister, young girl. Completely dedicated to Danbi's well-being, Ah-young faces a life full of challenges due to her precarious economic situation. She works in a small cafe where she barely earns enough to cover the basic expenses. She often falls behind on the rent, which creates constant tension with the landlord. One day, the landlord confronts her directly in a stern tone. She demands that she pay the overdue rent within a week or she will be evicted along with her sister. This threat leaves Sung deeply worried and unsure of what to do, as she has no one else to turn to. With this burden on her mind, she walks to work but stops when she sees her sister Danbi arguing with a group of kids. The little ones tease her, telling her that she can't participate in an upcoming school camp because she doesn't have a father to accompany her. These words deeply hurt Danbi, who feels marginalized and excluded. Joho steps in to calm the situation. At first, she tries to reason with the kids, but her attitude changes when she notices that they are mocking her sister. After this incident, she takes Danbi back home, and she promises that she will do everything necessary to make sure she never feels excluded again. However, worry about the stability of her home weighs on her mind. It continues to weigh on her mind. Later, at the cafe where she works, Ah-young confides her problems to young Joho, her friend and co-worker for the past 7 years. Joho, always attentive and worried about Ah-young, offers her a place to stay, suggesting that she move in with Danbi to his house. Although grateful, Ah-young declines the offer because she doesn't want to be a burden, especially knowing that Joho lives with his parents. Despite her refusal, Joho's gesture highlights his unconditional support for her. That same day, Danbi stops in front of a restaurant window. She watches a father and his daughter sharing a meal, and this moment brings her a deep sense of nostalgia. Memories of her father flood her. Wishing to experience that family connection again, however, her presence makes the restaurant customers uncomfortable, who call the waiter. In a stern tone, he orders her to leave and threatens to call the police if she doesn't. Just at that moment, a man passing by, Lee On-sung, notices the situation and decides to intervene. The next day, On-sung visits the cafe where Ah-young works and formally introduces himself. In an unexpected move, he proposes a surprising agreement. He wants to legally adopt Ah-young and Danbi for a month. This proposal leaves Ah-young completely bewildered, not knowing how to react. On-sung explains to her that he has no malicious intentions and that his offer could be beneficial for both parties. Although intrigued by the proposal, Ah-young can't help but feel distrustful. The idea of accepting a strange man as a guardian, even temporarily, raises a lot of doubts for her. However, the desperation over her financial situation and the constant worry for Danbi make her seriously consider the proposal. A song, for its part, seems determined to gain your trust, convinced that this agreement will not only change his life but also that of both sisters. Lee On-sung's secretary meets Kim Ah-young in the cafe and asks her a puzzling question. Soon reveals unexpected emotions and completely transforms their lives. Lee On-sung's secretary approaches Kim Ah-young at the cafeteria and asks him a puzzling question. If it's true that you're looking for a father, Kim Ah-young, completely confused. She doesn't understand the meaning of that phrase. Before she can ask for an explanation, Lee On-sung makes his entrance, radiating a mix of elegance and confidence that leaves Kim Ah-young impressed. His sophisticated demeanor not only captures her attention, but also of everyone present in the cafe. Intrigued by the appearance of Lee On-sung, Kim Ah-young decides to look him up on social media. She discovers that the man is incredibly well off financially. So much so that, to grab her attention for a few minutes, he buys 100 cups of coffee. This gesture makes it clear that for Lee On-sung, money is not an obstacle, and he's willing to use it to resolve any situation. During their brief conversation, Lee On-sung mentions that Kim Ah-young reminds him of his little sister. Kim Ah-jung, not understanding the connection, asks, what does that have to do with her? Before responding, Seely's secretary Ah Song hands her an envelope with documents and leaves, leaving Kim Ah-jung even more confused. However, before she can open the envelope, the narrative takes us back a few days when Seely Sung met Kim Danby. In that encounter, Seely Sung saw Kim Danby being scolded by a store employee. He intervened to defend her and, along with his secretary, invited her to lunch. Thinking she was hungry, they offered her food, but Kim Danby explained that she wasn't looking because she wanted to eat, but because she missed the family moments with her father, something she no longer had. This confession awakened something in Seely, and Song, who, against his secretary's advice, proposed a deal to the girl. He needed a daughter, and she seemed like the perfect candidate. Perfect! So, we return to the present, where Kim Ah-jung is reviewing the documents handed to her by Seely and Song. It's a legal proposal to adopt Kim Ah-jung and Kim Danby for a month. Kim Ah-jung, although impressed, initially rejects the idea. She argues that even though Seely Song has money, no one would believe that someone 5 years older than her could be her father. Also, she's worried about what people might think. However, Seely Song, showing a determined attitude, he responds that he doesn't care about other people's opinions because there are more important things at stake. To reinforce his point, he asks her to check another document in the envelope where Kim Ah-jung discovers the same contract, but this time written in crayons by Kim Danby. Kim Ah-jung, still confused, doesn't fully understand what's happening. At this point, a flashback. It gives us more context about the situation. Seely Anson reveals that his grandmother, before passing away, he included a clause in his will stating that in order to inherit the family business, a daughter must be born within the next 2 months. If this condition is not met, the business will go to his uncle, a corrupt man who would surely lead it to ruin. Seely Anson is in a desperate situation. He knows that it's impossible to have a biological daughter in such a short time, but he finds a legal loophole in the clause. It doesn't specify that the daughter has to be biological, so he can adopt one. This leads him to propose this agreement to Kim Ah-jung, as he only needs to be her legal father for a month. Although Kim Ah-jung understands Seely's desperation, Yoon-sung hesitates to accept the agreement. She decides to consult her Yoon-jo, who strongly opposes it. Yoon-jo argues that moving into an unknown man's house could be dangerous. Kim Ah-jung, with no choice, moves in with Kim Danby. She feels she has no other option. After thinking it over, she accepts the contract and moves in with Kim Danby to the luxurious residence of Seely Song. Both are impressed by the size and opulence of the place, which contrasts with their humble apartment. Shortly after, Kim Ah-jung discovers that Seely Song will also be living with them as her legal father. This doesn't sit well with her, as she's afraid that living together will complicate things even more. However, a flashback reveals that Seely Song was impressed by Kim Ah-jung's beauty. Seely Song's feelings for her might not be just professional. He was impressed by Kim Ah-jung's beauty. This indeed suggests that maybe Seely Song's feelings for her aren't just professional. Kim Ah-jung and Seely Song find themselves living together. This requires a period of adjustment and adaptations in their living together. Although at first everything seems to be going well, Kim Danby goes camping, leaving Kim Ah-jung and Seely Song home alone for the first time, living as a supposed father and daughter. This time alone leads them to establish clear rules to avoid conflicts and create a harmonious environment. One day, Seely Song comes home and finds Kim Ah-jung folding her underwear, which makes her very embarrassed. This leads to the first rule. No one should touch clothes that aren't theirs. Despite the awkwardness, Seely Song feels intrigued that Kim Ah-jung is organizing things without anyone asking her to. Later on, Kim Ah-jung finds out that Seely Song threw away a mountain of pizza boxes that she had been saving to deliver to a business. This incident forces her to start over with her work, and as a result, a new rule is created. No one can throw anything away without consulting the other first. Another situation arises during a business call for Seely Song when he can't concentrate. Because of a phone argument that Kim Ha-young has about the pizza boxes. This moment reminds him that he doesn't live alone and that he should avoid raising his voice. This establishes another rule, to be considerate of each other's space and activities. One morning, while Kim Ah-jung is having breakfast, Seely Song throws away the milk he's drinking because it was expired, breaking the rule of not throwing anything away. Although Seely Song argues that it's logical to get rid of expired products, Kim Ah-jung doesn't agree. Song disagrees and adds a new rule, to respect each other's living habits. She explains that she's used to keeping food 1 or 2 days past the expiration date. Despite these small conflicts, they manage to draft a code of coexistence that brings peace back to the house. During the night, Kim Ah-jung talks to Kim Danby, who excitedly tells her that her new dad also reached out to her. which makes her very happy. In addition, Kim Dan-bi asks her to fix a broken toy unicorn. Kim Ah-young, just ready to fix the unicorn, asks Silian-sung, "Where's the toolbox?" However, he replies that he doesn't have one, since when something breaks, he just buys a new one. This attitude surprises Kim Ah-young, who doesn't agree with his way of thinking. A huge moth appears, causing chaos. Its removal is chaotic. Door, which unleashes chaos. Both fear insects, turning the removal into chaos. With teamwork, they eliminate the insect. During the celebration, they awkwardly hug on the bed. Thanks to teamwork, they manage to get rid of the insect. However, during the celebration, they both end up hugging on the bed, which creates an extremely awkward moment. Between them, the situation becomes even weirder when thinking about the father-daughter dynamic. The next day, Kim Ae-jung talks to young Yo-ho and tells her the story of the moth. She also takes the opportunity to mention that she's living with Silly An-sung, something that young Jo-ho does not approve of at all. Just when young Jo-ho is there to give a speech about the risks of the situation, Silly An-sung's uncle shows up. The uncle, suspicious, asks Kim Ah-young what she's doing in his nephew's house. Unable to respond, Kim Ah-young falls silent until Silly An-sung shows up. And to prevent the uncle from suspecting his intentions, he claims that Kim Ah-young is his housekeeper. After Silly and Song introduces Kim Ae-jung to their uncle as a maid, Ae-jung is disappointed that she has to lie. Although she understands that it is best to keep up appearances, she is not happy with what happened. Silly and Song explains that this lie is necessary to protect both of them, and while Ae-jung accepts it, it's clear that the situation makes her uncomfortable. On the other hand, Silly and Song's uncle starts to suspect the rumors he's heard about his nephew's plans. For this reason, he orders his assistants to keep a closer eye on Silly An-sung and her supposed maid. Ah-young meets Jo-ho. Jo-ho disagrees with Jo-ho for lunch. Jo-ho disagrees with Ah-young living in Silly An-sung's house. He worries about their safety. Jo-ho has arranged for them to stay at his place. He's worried not only about her safety but also about Kim Dan-bi's. Additionally, Jo-ho tells her that he has arranged everything so that both of them can stay at his house, offering them a safe place. However, Ae-jung, confident that she has the situation under control, she rejects the offer. This infuriates Jo-ho, who leaves upset, but before he goes, he gifts her a couple of stun guns as a measure of protection. This gesture makes it clear that Jo-ho feels something more for Ah-jung. Later, Ah-jung and Jo-ho reconcile at the cafe where they work. The tension eases and they regain their friendship. However, the calm is interrupted when two furious women burst into the cafe demanding to speak with Ah-jung. They accuse Kim Dan-bi of having attacked their children and demand compensation for what happened, threatening to call the police. Jo-ho tries to defend Ah-jung, but the women completely ignore him. The situation only calms down when Silly An-sung enters the cafe, projecting authority and confidence. The women, although still upset, calm down upon seeing his presence. Silly An-sung asks Ah-young why she hadn't answered his calls, and she explains that her phone was off. Then, he turns to the women and in a firm tone, he informs them that he just returned from school, where he had a meeting. He assures them that he has access to the security footage that proves Kim Dan-bi was just defending herself from their children, who were bothering her. Offended, the women question who Silly An-sung is and what his relationship is with Kim Dan-bi. Ah-jung, assuming he will introduce her again as his maid, is surprised when he identifies himself as the legal guardian of the sisters. Additionally, he supports the idea of involving the police if necessary, which intimidates the women. Realizing who they are dealing with, they hurriedly apologize and leave. As the women leave, a strange man discreetly approaches them to ask for details about the meeting. This suggests that someone else is closely watching Silly An-sung's movements. Later, Silly An-sung says goodbye to Ah-young at the cafe and tells her he'll see her at home. Ah-young, impressed by how he handled the situation. She doesn't know what to say, as every time he shows up, her heart races. At night, Ah-young arrives home and is surprised to see Silly An-sung there. He explains to her that his schedule was cancelled, which allowed him to spend time with her. Together they go to buy a tent for Kim Dan-bi, who insists that he wants one for camping. During the outing, they share a special moment when Silly An-sung confesses that he enjoys spending time with her. They both start looking at each other differently, hinting that their relationship is evolving. Silly An-sung's meetings weren't cancelled, he postponed them due to Kim Dan-bi. He himself decided to set them aside upon learning about Kim's problems. Dan-bi, prioritizing her well-being. This shows a protective and committed side of the character, willing to give up everything to take care of the sisters. Although living together remains complicated, Silly An-sung's actions begin to have an emotional impact on Ah-young, who increasingly feels that he is not just a legal guardian, but someone she can trust. I mean, this plan of the 23-year-old adopted daughter is the dumbest thing I've seen in years. Couldn't he just adopt the girl and pretend to be the protagonist's partner? If they were going to be lying anyway, whatever. Let's continue. In a sports store, Kim Ah-young and Si Leon-sung have a deep conversation while looking for a tent for Kim Dan-bi. During the conversation, they both start to realize that they are developing feelings for each other, but neither of them dares to express it. The conversation shifts to lighter topics like the features of the tents, but Ah-young mentions that she has noticed that Yoon-sung is very observant when it comes to people. This surprises her as he doesn't seem to have close friends. Silly Yoon-sung confesses to her that he grew up without parents and was raised solely by his grandmother. He explains that he is willing to do whatever it takes to protect his family's legacy and the people who depend on him professionally. They both enjoy the rest of the outing, unaware that someone is photographing them from afar. Days later, Kim Dan-bi returns from her camping trip and is enthusiastically welcomed by Ah-young and Yoon-sung. However, they don't realize that Yoon-sung's uncle's assistant is spying on them, confirming his suspicions about his nephew's plan. Determined to destroy Yoon-sung's reputation, the assistant continues gathering evidence. Time passes and Ah-young attends a wedding with Young Ho-ho. For the occasion, she dresses elegantly, something that doesn't go unnoticed by Yoon-sung. Seeing her, he starts to realize that he no longer sees her as an adopted daughter, but as a woman. This new perspective confuses him and fills him with uncertainty. Meanwhile, Yoon-sung meets with his secretary, but instead of talking about work, he starts a more personal conversation. In what is probably the closest thing to a chat between friends for him, Unsung confesses that his original plan, designed to protect his company and employees, has become complicated. Now he feels like he has more things to protect, and this new reality brings him doubts. The secretary saw the change. Ah-young and Dan-bi's influence is on his phone with Dan-bi's stickers. The influence of Ah-young and Dan-bi on his life is evident. Something that is even reflected in his phone case, now decorated with stickers that Dan-bi has put on it. The secretary advises him to reflect on what he really wants and assures him that he will be by his side no matter what he decides. Just as he finishes speaking, he receives a call that will change Yoon-sung's life forever. On the other hand, Ah-young and Jo-ho are coming back from the wedding, joking about how beautiful the bride looked. Jo-ho reminds Ah-young how she used to mock weddings and said she would never get married. But now she isn't so sure about that. On the way, Ah-young complains that her feet hurt from the shoes she wore, and Jo-ho, always attentive, offers her some slippers he has with him. Just when it seems like they're about to have a special moment, Ah-young receives a message on her phone. The photos taken by Yoon-sung's uncle's assistant have indeed been leaked to the media. In the images, Ah-young is seen with Yoon-sung looking comfortable and close. The headlines speculate about the identity of the mysterious young woman and her relationship with the powerful CEO. Embarrassed and not knowing what to do, Ah-young is left frozen. Jo-ho, worried, suggests that she go with him to get away from the situation and take some time to think. Before Ah-young can decide, Yoon-sung shows up looking for her, but Jo-ho steps in between them, leaving Ah-young caught between the two most important people in her life. Not knowing how to proceed, Jo-ho, Kim's friend, Ah-young confronts Si Leon-sung in a tense moment. He demands that she stop playing with Ah-young's feelings, arguing that even though she is also responsible for not speaking up earlier, it's not fair for her to be treated like a pawn in the rich's power game. Jo-ho tells him that people shouldn't be treated that way, no matter their financial situation. In response to these words, Si Leon-sung admits that Jo-ho has a point. In a calmer tone, he tells her that he is not there for the formal relationship, as Kim Dan-bi's tutor, but because he has fallen in love with Kim Ah-young and wants to be with her. This unexpected confession leaves Jo-ho and Ah-young surprised. Before leaving, Yoon-sung asks Ah-young to think about what she really wants to do and promises to respect her decision. After Yoon-sung leaves, Ah-young is emotionally devastated, caught between the feelings of two men who love her deeply. At that moment, Jojo, feeling like he has nothing left to lose, confesses to Ion that he has been in love with her for the past 7 years. He explains that he always waited for the right moment to tell her, understanding that after the death of her parents, her financial problems, and the responsibility of taking care of Kim Dan-bi, it wasn't the best time. However, now he feels that he can no longer keep his feelings to himself. Ah-young, moved by Jo-ho's sincerity, thanks him for being honest, but also tells him that she can't return his feelings. She admits that she has always deeply valued his unconditional support since she lost her parents. But she doesn't feel the same way about him as he feels about her. However, she reveals to him that she has discovered that what she feels for Yoon-sung is different from any other emotion she has experienced before. Jo-ho, although hurt, He accepts Aejong's feelings, encourages her to pursue Unsung. Joho leaves, letting Aejong follow her heart. However, he adds that he won't wish her luck because doing so would be a lie. With this emotional closing, Joho leaves, allowing Aejong to follow her heart. Aejong returns home and finds Yunsung waiting for her. He, grateful for her return, confesses that the only thing that matters to him now is taking care of her and Kim. Danbi. When Aejong asks him about the company and the issues with his uncle, Yunsung replies that, for now, that's not relevant as his priority is his relationship with her. In that moment, they both kiss, sealing the start of a new chapter in their relationship. In the following days, things start to stabilize. Ahjong continues working at the cafe, as always, while Ansong manages to regain control of his company. By exposing his uncle's unethical business practices, he shows that, in large corporations, what matters are the results and leadership. For the young board, Ah Song is the best choice as CEO, putting aside any controversy regarding his grandmother's will. Meanwhile, Kim Danbi faces another challenge at the park. The same girls who used to tease her are bothering her again, telling her that they won't invite her to the camp because he's poor and doesn't have a father. However, Yoon Sung appears at that moment with an imposing presence. He introduces himself as Danbi's father. Also, to everyone's surprise, he announces that he has rented out the entire camp exclusively for them, leaving the annoying girls out of the equation. At the end of the day, Yoon Sung returns to the cafe where he works. Young. With a smile, he tells her that he has a new proposal, but this time he's not looking for a daughter, but a wife. Young, excited, agrees and they kiss again, officially starting their life together. At the end, the cafe symbolizes love and opportunities. This touching story ends, becomes the symbol of the start of a future full of love and opportunities. This story concludes. Kim Ahjong, Si Leon, Song, and Kim Danbi show that the unexpected brings hope. Where family ties and love manage to overcome differences, adversities, and even the most unusual agreements. Kim Ahjong, Si Leon, Song, and Kim Danbi show us that sometimes the unexpected can be the beginning of a life full of hope, unity, and new opportunities. If you enjoyed this summary, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and share it with more people who, like you, love discovering unique stories. See you in the next video. See you soon.